Okay, it's time for Dodger Baseball. I'm just kidding. We're going to watch a movie recap. This is some space thing by... Let's see, who's this from? Come on, who's it from? Oh, Fantastic Captain. In 2025, the only place to survive is 18,000 feet high in toxic gas. So a lot of people farted, and now we can't live on Earth. And so how are we going to survive? Let's find out. Don't fart,
A time
guys.
is coming when
This
humanity
what
is
will happen.
destroying its own planet.
Yep,
People
they
live
are.
for their own pleasure while the ice shield
all
was
the
heating up
farts.
and the
There's a
permafrost
fart
was
right there.
melting,
There's a
releasing
fart.
viruses and bacteria that had been dormant for millions of years, patiently waiting for their moment to kill all life. The authorities
they're
spent their
definitely
remaining
killing us all.
resources on building rockets meant to send the survivors into space.
I
but
thought they were
had
shooting
no clear
nukes.
plan.
They're just shooting nukes. It's all over. Hey, it's the end of the world. Let's just shoot off the nukes, guys. It was nice knowing you. You know, we let out some viruses. The only way to kill them off so it doesn't spread to alien populations. Let's just nuke. Human race is gone. Let's see how we survive.
Of where to go. So most likely they either died from cosmic
last
radiation or
spark of
killed each
hope,
other in the fight for the
2023.
last supplies. The Earth, exhausted yet wise, rid itself of its worst enemy, humans.
Yep, that's smart. Get rid of the humans. We are our own worst enemies. Sleeping with the clothes on.
Those who survived found shelter high in the mountains, far enough from the infected territories, but no one knows how many there are.
that a podcast?
Eve is one of these survivors. She has a small military robot named Arthur, battered in the climate wars. He creaks,
climate wars.
rattles, and
See, this is why we got to watch out for climate change, because the climate wars are coming. Donald Trump's going to stop those climate wars.
looks like a homeless man, yet he still carries out his program
He doesn't
to
look like
protect
a
Eve,
homeless
though it's
man.
unclear whom he's protecting her from. On
Who
this
is he?
particular
Probably all the crazy people. I'm sure without laws, like only the weirdos, like the only people are like the doomsday preppers, and those guys are weirdos. Like there's probably a bunch of weirdo doomsday preppers running around.
day, Eve is getting ready to head into the city, even though Arthur considers the trip dangerous.
Yep.
He urges her not to drink any
She's probably the only woman on the earth too. Like, don't drink water. Yeah, there's probably it's probably a crime country down there of anarchy and stuff. And somebody's gonna follow her to her house of supplies and murder her. But there's probably some like mutants down there. Maybe there's a sexy mutant. Maybe the human race got sexier.
water there under any circumstances. Eve, meanwhile, reminds him to keep a better watch on their
See, I bet you OF models are making a killing right
base.
now. During
When the
this
robot
pandemic.
expresses bewilderment, she explains it's just a joke, something the robot doesn't understand, though theoretically he knows such things exist.
Yeah.
Eve drives into the city along a dusty road strewn with all sorts of junk left by civilization. Reaching a wrecked
Screw
supermarket,
that
she
junk.
finds what she needs and, for some reason, takes a packet of lavender seeds. Even though
Yeah, do you know what this this apocalypse area where they have to live over 1,800 feet? This reminds me of when I used to hike in LA. Like when I lived in LA, you would hike up not even that high. Like you just have to go up 300 feet, and then you could look down onto the smog layer. Like that's what the future of humanity is going to. You know. I broke stuff.
they likely won't sprout. Before leaving, she scrawls a note on the wall with the coordinates of where she lives, hoping someone will read it.
Don't
When
do
Eve
that.
returns-
Have you watched anything? They're gonna know exactly where you're at. They're gonna destroy you. Come on, don't leave your
Arthur
coordinates.
is there to greet her, demanding the password right away. She speaks the word, and in answer to his question, reports that she went shopping in the mall, had coffee with a friend, and in the evening attended a concert with her buddies.
Yeah.
Realizing Arthur doesn't grasp her sarcasm, Eve promises to make some adjustments to his visual system. She unloads the car, having to give the password each time, much to her annoyance.
Oh.
Then, in a moment of mischief, she deliberately says the wrong word, prompting the robot to threaten her with a weapon. Eve
Well,
resigns herself to the
what
fact
weapon?
that he'll never comprehend her jokes. After the trip, Eve
Yeah,
takes a
she
cleansing
needs some
shower
humans.
and makes another attempt to reach anyone via
Yeah.
radio, but the airwaves remain silent.
Well, I guess if there's nobody, but you'll be the only one. What if this weird, creepy group of 8 men find your coordinates? Oh, there's one more women left. We've been just doing it with ourselves.
That evening, she waters the plants in the greenhouse, jots down the few
Dude, I just know that, like, if there was an apocalypse, only, like, the doomsday preppers would be alive. Like, normal humans, like, with their cell phones and all that, like, they're not living through this. It's the doomsday preppers who had, like 6 months worth of food in their house.
scraps of news she has, fixes broken items, and bounces a ball off the wall to keep herself at
Wow,
least
she's
somewhat
very
entertained.
entertained,
While
yep.
Arthur does a loop around the station's small perimeter, guarding it against
Why is
unknown
the voice of
intruders.
this is
In the
like
morning,
Larry?
Eve starts installing a solar panel and
Hey, do you think Evil Larry, like, did this?
suggests to Arthur that they play riddles.
Same
She
voice.
poses the first one, which he easily solves, then he offers his own. They continue until Eve presents a riddle about 3 robots. Arthur can't answer because only a human can grasp it, and he asks Eve for the
I think
correct solution. She
AI
merely
nowadays.
laughs at him, delighted that she's finally outsmarted the robot.
Yeah, you smarted the
Jokingly, she
robot.
proposes to Arthur that he marry
That robot does not seem like it would be very hard to, like, outsmart. Like, oh, I finally outsmarted this robot that looks like it was like an 8th grade project. Like, I think I could outsmart this robot, and I'm not even of high intelligence. I think somebody of medium intelligence can be, like, decently outsmart. It seems like you just pushed the robot over and you outsmarted it, because it would do, like, some turtle thing on its back.
her. He gives her the dictionary definition of marriage and assures her such a union between them is impossible. With bitterness, she says that she has no one but this robot. Her father built the base, then left for his unit after the war.
Yep.
and
See, doomsday prepper. Her dad was a doomsday prepper, so she's probably weird, but she's lonely, ready to marry a robot. I'm ready to marry like a hot robot right now, like and it's coming. You know, I'll probably buy like the 5th generation robot, because the first ones are gonna come out being like $100 grand, and then they're gonna make them for normal people, where it's like a cell phone, like $500.
and brought Arthur here, having picked him up from a warehouse.
I'm not gonna get the Samsung Galaxy Ultra like companion robot. I'm gonna get like the Nokia model, you know?
Afterward, her father left again, although he promised to return in a couple of days while the robot guarded her.
Yeah, that's
but a lot
not
of time
happening.
has passed and he never came back.
He went to get the milk. He left you there. Your robot's your new daddy.
So the only one she could possibly marry is the robot.
Yep.
Not understanding her joke,
What was she gonna marry her dad if he came back? Probably. I don't know how desperate.
Arthur points out that a malfunction in a husband or wife could be a serious problem, but Eve suggests
Malfunction.
swapping him out for a newer model.
Yep.
People do that all the time, after all.
Yep.
Still, replacements
Replace
aren't
him.
always successful, and the 2 of them might be the last beings left on Earth. Arthur can neither confirm nor deny this, as
Yep.
his database goes only up to the end of 2040.
Yep.
Back then,
2040. This is what we're gonna be at in 2040. I might still be alive. Hey, don't let the end of the world happen until I'm long gone.
Earth's population was 9.5 billion. Eve says that
Now
she
it's
regularly leaves
9.5
their
people.
coordinates in the restricted zone, yet Arthur can't understand why. Who's left to read them if no one is around? The woman asks him to recall the 3 main rules for robots,
Yeah.
and Arthur obligingly lists
Oh, yeah,
them.
let's hear
A
the
robot
robot.
must not harm a human, must
Perfect.
obey all orders,
Yes.
and must ensure its own continued existence, provided
Yes.
it doesn't conflict with the first 2 laws. But Eve
Oh.
reminds him that her robot is also supposed to look for new energy sources. Arthur points out that he's a patrol robot, not a collection robot, and that his role is to prevent intruders from entering. In his view, an
Intruders.
intruder is anyone who doesn't know the password.
Yeah, but what kind of intruder is that? Look at that. Like, what is he gonna do? Just push him over? And what kind of gas is that in the back? It looks like he's very explosive. And that looks like a big target. You just take a sniper rifle and like hit that. That's like a gas tank.
Eve reminds him that during the climate war, he served at the border and let no one pass, simply because people didn't know the password. At that time, India
The
was
border.
suffering a severe water shortage.
Yes.
Temperatures soared so high that people and animals were literally cooking alive.
Trump's gonna build these robots.
Their only chance was to flee somewhere with a
Yeah.
possibility of survival. Meanwhile, the North had lined its border with thousands of robots, leading to the
Thousands of
most
robots.
massive slaughter in human history. It amounted to genocide of people fighting for their lives.
Yes.
But later, Arthur's memory was wiped. If she had known the password, she would have reflashed him long ago, granting him new responsibilities instead of this pointless patrolling. After all, she needs a cleaning robot
That's like
that
my
can be
dog
useful.
does.
For now, she finishes installing the panels, after which they can hang some lights.
Yes.
Christmas is coming soon. The girl wonders what to give Arthur
Christmas
for the
is
holiday,
coming.
but he reminds her that robots don't receive gifts.
Christmas
Eve laments
is
that he's just a hunk of metal without any emotions and pleads with him to at least pretend to be sentient. As sunset approaches, Arthur finds Eve and admits that he'd like a new eye for a present. Eve promises to take care of that.
Oh, look at it. He does want something. He has needs. Robots have needs too. Robots' lives matter, bro.
After she decorates the tree, Arthur recalls the riddle about the 3 robots and asks her to reveal the correct answer, but Eve refuses. That evening, she does her required chores, then pulls out a box of Christmas decorations. The next morning, she informs Arthur that she's leaving to find an artificial Christmas tree because there are no living ones left. As always, Arthur warns her of how dangerous such a trip could be, tells her to wear her suit, take a spare oxygen tank, and never, under any circumstances, drink the water. Eve starts loading her gear, but when she returns home, the robot stands in her way, demanding the password.
What's the password? She doesn't know the password anymore.
States the old one, but Arthur won't let her in because a new one came into effect that day, and it automatically updates every 3 months. Eve remembers that the new password is written in a book on the fridge, but she can't access it without getting inside,
can't even go
and
home.
Arthur won't let her in. She tries every word that comes to mind, but how can she guess one single word among millions?
Do you think her dad programmed it somehow?
She attempts to negotiate with the robot, reminding him that she's the only person here. Most likely, she really is the last human on Earth, having outlived everyone else, fighting daily for survival.
That robot.
Will she truly die here outside the base?
Yeah.
Just because she doesn't know the password? Eve tries to simply walk past Arthur, but he raises his weapon. She realizes he's not bluffing. Stepping aside, she tries to figure out what to do next. There must be a way out. The robot's patrol area is limited, so while he can't see her, Eve has to devise a solution.
Do it.
After some time, Eve approaches Arthur again, acting as if nothing happened. She says she needs an axe to chop down a tree and will give the password the moment she's inside the base. Unexpectedly, Arthur reminds her there are no living trees anymore. So why does she need an axe?
How does she know?
Once more, Eve tries to talk the robot into letting her in.
How does he know
knows her
there's
perfectly
no
well,
humans?
after all. He confirms that he recognizes her, but he cannot allow entry without the password. Eve proposes he let her inside for just a moment to glance at the password. Then all will be well. And if she says the wrong word, he can kill her. But the robot points out he can't do that because his purpose is to protect.
Is he gonna like go against his programming? He's gonna go against his programming. We are all machines. We are machines.
Humans. In this scenario, the only person he can destroy is a stranger, an intruder. And that means anyone who doesn't know the password. Seeing that it's a dead end, Eve backs away. She spends the night outside, periodically pelting the robot with stones, but never forcing him to leave his post. Morning arrives. Eve turns her clothes inside out, covers her face, and goes up to Arthur, trying to pass herself off as a refugee seeking asylum. She recalls that under Article 14 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, everyone has the right to seek asylum from persecution in other countries. Arthur agrees to discuss it with Eve once she returns from behind the generator. Eve steps away and then comes back looking like her usual self. Arthur reports that a stranger came by the day before and a refugee also showed up just now. Eve instructs him to offer the refugee water next time she appears. Eve moves out of sight, changes her outfit, and returns as the refugee.
She's outsmarting
She
the
requests
robot.
water, but Arthur begins questioning her, trying to determine whether she's a political refugee or a climate refugee. Eve says she's a political refugee because climate refugees have no rights whatsoever. However, the robot demands proof that she was persecuted in her home country. She reminds him of the Geneva Convention, which states no such evidence is required. But the robot insists a refugee must explain why it became dangerous to remain in their country, and he asks her to provide an answer. Eve explains that she fled from war. The aggressor burned her house, killed her relatives, and even shot at her. The robot deems that sufficient, yet demands documents. Losing patience, Eve questions what documents a war refugee could possibly have. Still, the robot recites procedural steps, filing an application for the border service, and so on. Frustrated, Eve just asks for water. Arthur promises he'll do so only after he gives water to Eve, who's already dehydrated and at risk of dying. Eve spends a second night by the generator. In the morning, she tries once more to pass, but upon seeing Arthur on duty, she gives up. He asks if she's certain there are no other humans left on Earth. Otherwise, where did the stranger and the refugee come from? But Eve is too exhausted to argue with the machine. Arthur
Give
notes
her
a
water.
nearby station that's been running for a century, implying someone must maintain it.
Oh.
Eve assumes only mindless robots are in charge.
Only
Arthur
mindless
refuses
robots.
to bring or carry anything off the base, so
Let's
in
go.
a twisted move to protect her, he kills her. Eve looks toward the distant station,
Save her.
convinced it's just another clueless machine stuck with its finger above the shutdown key,
Yeah, do
stopped
it.
only by a request for confirmation that it wasn't a robot.
Just
She
leave.
searches her vehicle for water, but finds none. Instead, she discovers lavender seeds, plants them near the car, and begs them to sprout. Then she proposes a deal to the robot. She'll give him the answer to the riddle about the 3 robots if he lets her onto the base. But Arthur won't take the bait.
Break.
She begs for water in exchange
Is
for
she
the
gonna
answer,
die?
but the robot remains silent. So Eve decides
The
to head
robot's
for that
gonna be
station,
alone. It's gonna
despite
be like
having
Wall-E.
very little oxygen left in her suit. She travels to the facility, climbing upwards so she can then descend on a rope into a huge pipe. Everywhere is desolate, though the control panel still
Get
has
it.
blinking lights.
Get
Eve
it.
searches around
Something
but can't find
interesting should
anything
happen.
useful. She comes across a locked
Do
door
it.
with bottles on the other side,
Water.
right when her timer signals that she's running out of air. So Eve
she's
removes her suit and smashes the door's small window
The
with
air's
an axe.
good. It's
She
like
forces
Wall-E.
her way in, only to
is like-
find the bottles are empty.
This is like
No longer
Wall-E.
bothering to protect herself, she searches
gonna
the
be a
base,
plant?
hears a dripping faucet, but moves on, recalling Arthur's warning. Finding nothing
water.
useful, she returns to the plateau, speeds up, and rams Arthur with her vehicle. It explodes, but the combat robot remains intact.
Oh, the
In the
robot's
morning,
too
Arthur
strong.
finds a weakened Eve and reports that a stranger tried to drive into the camp during the night. Now that stranger and the refugee are hiding behind the generator.
Yep.
She begs for water, but Arthur cannot leave his post.
I cannot leave my post.
Hallucinating, she sees her father urging her to drink. When she comes to, Arthur demands the password or
Password.
she will die. Later, Eve gathers raindrops from the roof, but throws them up immediately. Wryly, she comments that if Arthur were her husband, he'd help her. He simply notes
Marry
she will
her.
soon perish without proper
She's
hydration.
dying.
That night, she envisions herself in a
Oh,
city
look
with
at-
children's
she's
voices
got-
around her.
she's got a beautiful
In the morning,
dress
Arthur
on,
asks for the
children.
answer to the 3 robot riddle. Eve crawls toward him, stands briefly, and collapses. She again imagines herself
She's
in the
going
city,
crazy.
wondering how to
She's
defeat
psycho.
the machine. Arthur
the
then
machine.
reveals that emergency
Beat
mode
it.
will activate upon her death,
Beat it.
resetting the password.
Emergency.
He will be
Emergency.
alone, though he points out
Oh,
the
is she gonna-
refugee and stranger still exist, so humanity survives. Eve's final request is for Arthur to water her seeds. She dies, and the robot accepts one last password, lavender. A thoughtful
Lavender.
drama with a slow pace and a tragic end.
Wait,
it
she
leaves
dies?
a deep impression.
She dies? We went through all that and she dies? Come on! This is a terrible movie. She doesn't find the human race. She doesn't find water. There's no hope for humanity. That's the reality. This is probably how life would. This is probably how the end is gonna be. Like, we program a stupid computer and it didn't get updated with Windows 98, so now it's destroyed. Well, that was fun. If you want me to do more of this, make sure you like this video and subscribe. Put toxic gas or put a fart emoji. Whatever. Just let me know what you want me to try and react to next. It was nice hanging out with you guys. Hopefully I could see you again soon.